Our keynote speaker is Dr. Michelle Peticolas. She is an international speaker, distinguished Toastmaster, Select Distinguished Area Director, and Assistant Division D Director. She is also the founder of Second Chance Secrets, a professional training center which enables healers and change makers to unleash true brilliance so they can attract premium clients with high-end programs that make difference in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause and welcome the keynote speaker of the day, Dr. Michelle Pericolas, who is giving the speech Evaluate to Inspire. Over to you.
Thank you, Garima. Be honest with me. How do you feel about getting feedback? I mean, like criticism. Me? I hate it. I'm a perfectionist. Bad criticism means I'm not perfect. In my family growing up, we were all very sensitive about criticism. And so we learned how to give criticism in very, very careful way. Where I really learned how to give feedback more effectively was when I was running a group home on the Navajo reservation in Arizona. It was a behavioral program. So there were very specific protocols for how to change the behavior of teenagers. You can imagine how complicated that was. Well, the first thing you needed to do was to say something disarming or unexpected so that they wouldn't immediately resist you. For example, oh, that was a fantastic right punch. You might want to think about when you're going to use that. Or, you know, I know how irritating Albert is. However, you might need to have a little more patience. So the first thing was to say something disarming. The second thing was to give the correction and to give the rationale for why they needed to change their behavior. This was really important. And then the third thing was to actually give them 5 opportunities to change their behavior. In a sense, it's a little like Toastmaster's sandwich method. The positive, the evaluation or the stretch goal, and then the positive again. I love Toastmasters because it really taught me how to give evaluations, but better yet, how to get them and have it in such a nice way. There's a Toastmaster I know who is sort of a fixture in District 57, named Dennis Neary. And he tells the story about how he was working and was called upon to give speeches, but he didn't know how to give speeches. And first, they sent him to a coach who taught how to speak. It was awful. He was so demoralized. And then somebody suggested Toastmasters, and it was a whole different ballgame. It's true, Toastmasters is known for its ability to give evaluation in a way that can be received. You know, I actually wish that my husband would join Toastmasters so that he would learn how to give evaluations better, but he hasn't quite been ready to do that yet. I actually joined Toastmasters because of an evaluation. That's right. One of my first Toastmasters meetings, I'm sitting there, judgmental, right? And I'm listening to the speeches and I'm like, I can speak so much better than this. I mean, I've been speaking for 15 years. And then James Jeffley, and if you don't know who James Jeffley is, some of you are going to get a chance to meet him because he's going to probably be speaking at our Speechcraft series. He gave the most amazing speech I've ever heard. I was just blown away. It was engaging. It was interesting. He had vocal variety. I loved it. I was just amazed. But then you know what happened? Our dear gracious leader, Cynthia Stott, gave him stretch goals. And you know what? They were good. That's when I said, this is a place where I can learn how to be a good speaker. And so I joined. Tonight, I'm going to be sharing a training out of the Successful Club series, which is a series of trainings that enables a club to actually be a better Toastmasters club. And one of those trainings is how to evaluate to motivate. And to evaluate to motivate, there are three things that really make it work. One is that you give immediate feedback. Number two, you give specific goals or procedures for somebody to improve their speech. And finally, you make sure that you preserve that person's self-esteem. This is really important. You've probably all heard that public speaking is human beings' number one fear of ever having to do. As Gary Seinfeld said on his TV show, that means that it's actually more scary than dying. That means that you would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. It is, it's true. It's really scary. And so we really, as we give evaluations, we really need to be sensitive about that. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 keys for you to be better at giving evaluations. And the 3 keys are why, how, and what. Now, the last time I gave the speech, I reversed the order, but I have seen the light. Why is the number 1 key? Why? Why are you giving this evaluation? Well, the reason you're giving this evaluation is in order to help the speaker to grow. It is for the speaker. Now, the first time I gave an evaluation, I totally blew it. Of course, I had just gotten to Toastmasters. And you would think that having worked at the group home, I would have known better. But what did I do? I came up with 16 things that were wrong about the speaker, or I thought were wrong. And I don't think I gave one thing about what she did right. After I heard the other evaluations, I was mortified. I realized what my mistake was. The good news is the person I was evaluating was an experienced Toastmaster, so I did not destroy her self-esteem. The other good news is I have never done that again. Giving an evaluation is not about you. It's about the speaker. It's about helping them to grow. And when you keep this in mind, then you know what you are doing. You are trying to give them exactly what they need that's going to help them to get to the next level. And that means you don't need to give them everything that they did. They could be stretched. You want to give them exactly what will help them to improve. Now, this is very important because this is your purpose. It means you really do want to seek a stretch goal. I understand some of you may be new, and there you are. You're supposed to evaluate somebody who is a phenomenal speaker, DTM, maybe even a district leader, and you're like, oh my God, what do I have to say? Well, first of all, evaluations are opinions, and everybody's opinion is important. So give your opinion and notice what it is that maybe didn't quite fit with you. So I had an experience of that last week. Cynthia Stott, our fearless leader, gave an amazing speech. I mean, it was one of the best. It was probably the best speech I've ever heard her give. There was humor, there was vocal variety, there was seriousness. She gave great tips. And this I loved, she actually wove her credibility into her speech as opposed to kind of having, oh, and here's my credibility, by the way. And she never gave an offer, but she told so much about what she was doing that people were putting in the chat, tell us, when is your next Speechcraft? When is your next training? I was impressed. But I had volunteered to evaluate her. By the way, whenever you speak, always get credit and get evaluations, because that's the way in which you learn. So what was I going to tell Cynthia? Well, I noticed that at the beginning of her speech, she was talking about how your people are waiting for you, that they are dying to hear from you. And I noticed that I kind of disconnected, that I wasn't really listening. And I thought, So I mentioned it to her. I said, this is just my opinion, but I found that I had a hard time listening at that point in time. And then we talked about it and realized that it was too early in her speech. And she thanked me. And this was just my opinion. It was just my sense of what worked and what didn't. So don't be afraid to share what works and what doesn't for you. Because that's your purpose. That's your why. And then I know there was one more thing I wanted to say on this. Oh, right. This is really important. You know that you have achieved your mission, your why, if the speaker comes back to you and says, thank you. I am so excited to try out some of the things that you said. So that's the why. Then there is the how. How do you deliver your evaluation? Number one, you deliver it as a speech. Yes, your evaluation is a 3-minute speech. And if you ever compete in an evaluation speech contest, you really want to remember that and make sure that you have a good opening. Number two, you want to use I statements. Remember, it's your opinion. And you want to make sure that the speaker knows, this is just my opinion, so that they have a choice. They don't have to think that you are the expert, even if you might be an expert. Number three, you want to sandwich. Remember I said something about that in the beginning? You want to begin with a positive and then give your stretch goal, use the word stretch, and then you want to have positive at the end. Remember that rule of thumb I said about 1 and 5 when I was talking about the group home for wayward teenagers? This is a good rule of thumb, that you want many, many more positives than you want stretch goals. And in fact, you really only want the very best stretch goals. You don't want to overwhelm somebody. You want to help them to improve. And if you give them too many, you could overwhelm them, swamp them. Now, this is really, really important. When you talk about the good things, be specific. It's not enough to say, oh, I loved your speech. Why did you love it? Your opening was really, really helpful. How you talked about all the different ways that change happens in our lives. It really drew me in. Or I love the way in which you asked a question. And it got me thinking, well, how do I feel about that? So be specific. And when you are giving the stretch goal, make sure to give a demonstration. That is, let them understand how it is that they can improve. So recently, I gave somebody the feedback that they needed to appear to be looking at the audience. Now, this is really, really much easier in person than it is on Zoom, because you are actually looking at a camera, and that can be tricky. And I said, watch how you look at the screen. And she says, I'm having a lot of trouble with it. What I could have told her is what I do. And what I do is I look at the top of the screen where all the little pictures are. And I put one of the pictures right underneath my camera. Now, don't I look like I'm looking exactly at you? And it's much easier to look at a human being than it is to look at a lens. So that's my trick. So when you do how, it's a speech, you want to use I statements, you want to sandwich, be specific, and demo your stretch goal. Now we get to the third point. The third point is what? I know you're all waiting for that. It's like, what am I supposed to pay attention to? What am I supposed to be evaluating them on? Well, you use the same WHW, why, what, how, or why, how, what, when you're evaluating. What is their why? What is their purpose of their speech? And oftentimes you can find that in their evaluation form, because it's usually a project and it tells them what they need to be working on. But you might actually want to speak to your speaker and ask her or him what he's working on. So that's number one, the why. And you want to notice how well they accomplish their goal. Number two, the how. How are they delivering their speech? Are they using, yes, I'm sorry, I've lost my notes. Oh, I lost my time. Okay, so let me be real quick. So how do they deliver it? This is really important. There is a 7-38-55 rule. That is that we listen to 7% is vocal or verbal, 38% is your voice, and a full whopping 55% is body language. So you want to notice how they delivered their speech. And then the what. Was the topic engaging? Was it interesting? Make sure that you take a look at how well they presented their speech. And I have run out of time, and I am always try to be very respectful of time. So just remember why, how, and what. And remember, it's your opinion. And two, it's really important to inspire your speaker. Madam Toastmaster.
Woo! And Garima? Great. So I'm going to give 5 minutes of Q&A. So that means you can put your comments and your questions in the chat for Michelle, and I will read them out for the next 5 minutes. So if we could have the timer set for 5 minutes, that would be great. And first of all, Michelle, you mentioned James Jeffley, and he is the two-time finalist for the World Champion of Public Speaking from District 57. And yes, he will be giving us a keynote address, just like you just did, on October 18th in the evening at 5:45 p.m. to 8 p.m. And so stay tuned for him. And he's going to be talking about vocal variety and body language, and he's going to give us a little demo speech of it. Awesome. So let me read from the chat here. That was amazing, Michelle. Oh, I love how you talk about evaluate to inspire. Rosalind, let's see, Carla Riekman said she did very well. Michelle Tony, oh yay, Michelle, I didn't know you were here. I remember the sandwich rule, yes. And Grace says, great talk, Michelle, great points. Carolyn Douglas says, great description of the evaluation procedure. And Rosalind says, wow, you were incredible. Love your punctuation on particular words. Great promo for a future speaker. And Maureen Xavier says, Michelle, you are always a captivating speaker. So many golden nuggets. Why, how, and what will be a new way for me to look at what I present. Great. And Rajiv says, what would be the right number of points to mention in evaluation within 3 minutes? Even we may have many positives and suggestions. Great, that's good. Let's talk about the numbers. How many positives, how many strengths would you show, and how many stretch goals would you show ideally?
Well, I like the rule of thumb of 5 to 1. However, when you present your stretch goal in a way that's exciting and enthusiastic, and you say it in a way that you like, this is going to really improve your speech, and I'm so excited, and they get excited, it isn't a criticism anymore. It's something that ignites them, that they say, oh my gosh, this is what I need. But be aware of who the person is that you're speaking to and how much they can handle. Cynthia, you gave me a stretch goal the other time, just last Saturday, and it was like one or two things, but they were important. And that's what you want, is you want to get exactly that stretch goal that gets people to say, yes, you're right, I need to do that. Like somebody saying, you gave a great presentation, you even gave a great call to action, but you didn't end strongly. And I was like, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. You're right. And that is all I needed. That's all I needed. And this might help, especially if you're evaluating somebody who's a really strong speaker. Only look for one thing. Keep it easy for yourself. One thing is plenty. And make sure to give it in a demo so that they understand what you're talking about. And my favorite, your favorite, Cynthia, if you are lacking in something to give somebody as a stretch goal, look for the pause. Almost everybody really needs help with their pauses, because we're cramming a whole lot of stuff into 7 minutes. And if we're doing it for 15 minutes, we still cram it in.
Great. And that's absolutely true for evaluating. Feel into who they are. How long have they been speaking? Can you say more? Or is the stretch goal really strong, so they need to digest it? They can't take anymore. Feel into that. A little bit different when you're evaluating for a contest. And I know some of you have a contest coming up. And I was the District 57 evaluation contest winner in 2015. And my formula, I have a very cool formula that won me 2 years in a row, because I timed out the first year and I had to start all over again. So that's rule number 1, don't time out. But in the evaluation contest, I think the rule for me, the rule of 3 is good. 3 strengths and 3 stretch goals. So you have balance there. And sometimes I will use the same thing and give how you did it well and how could you do it better. And one of mine that go-tos is pause. How did they use it well and how could they use it better? So that's definitely
great. And remember that it's not about the winning. The real win is when the speaker comes to you at the end of the contest and says, oh, those were the best points and stretch goals I've ever heard. Then you know that you've done your job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's see.
I think we're done. I think we've finished our time there.
Okay, I'll just read them off here.
Okay.
Okay. Christopher said, great, awesome. Not only Toastmaster in my work as well. I can use this. Why, how, and what? Oh, good point. And Aswin says, thanks, Michelle. That was great. Rosalind says, love your sense of humor. Truly heartfelt. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Another big round of applause. And back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Madam Toastmaster.